Yes, I will gladly take it away. So, welcome everybody to our first of three webinars to walk you through the ins and outs of using iNaturalist Canada to record and identify what you find in urban spaces at this year's City Nature Challenge. This one will again focus on making observations in urban spaces in particular. I would like to first by starting to acknowledge with immense gratitude the land in which the Canadian Wildlife Federation is located on and where we live, work, and play is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. The Algonquin people have inhabited and cared for these lands long before today, and we take this time to be grateful for their care and show our gratitude and respects to them and to the land and all they provide for us. So today, my name is Acacia Frimpong Manso. I am the iNaturalist Engagement Coordinator here at the Canadian Wildlife Federation, and I'll let James introduce himself.
Hi, yeah, I'm James Page, Species at Risk and Biodiversity Specialist at CWF, and also working on iNaturalist as well in community science.
And this webinar, it will be recorded and available on CWF's website. The easiest way to look for it is to Google CWF webinars, where you can find all of our recordings of past webinars, as well as announcements for upcoming ones. This presentation, again, will provide an overview of iNaturalist Canada, City Nature Challenge, and how to make observation in urban spaces that can be helpful for beginners as well as experienced iNat users. So just to go over some Zoom logistics and controls for chat issues, I would recommend if the problem persists, often leaving and rejoining can correct things. If for some reason we cut off, please rejoin by using the same link that was distributed. If we have time at the end, we will do a quick Q&A and I will compile all of the questions. And for individuals who are hearing impaired, please click the live transcription at the bottom of the screen to show subtitles. And I think I saw a comment, yes, the recording will be available in 1 to 2 days, typically after the recording has been done. So now I just want to talk about the Canadian Wildlife Federation and our programs. CWF is one of Canada's largest conservation organizations, undertaking projects in conservation across the country. Our mission is to conserve and inspire the conservation of Canada's wildlife and habitats, and we do this in a number of ways. One is through public engagement and in youth citizen science, like iNaturalist Canada, education programs like Wild Outside and the Canadian Conservation Corps program, and specific projects in freshwater, marine, and terrestrial environments, many of which target species at risk, like the right whale, Blanding's turtle, and at-risk bats, and the monarch butterfly. And CWF is leading the national-wide push for the City Nature Challenge in Canada, as you'll learn more about soon. So what is iNaturalist Canada? At its core, iNaturalist is a community. It's all the people who contribute observations, identifications, and feedback to each other and the creators of the platform. This can all be done by using the iNaturalist app or using the webpage on iNaturalist.ca. Currently, we have almost over 13 million observations have been made in Canada and nearly 40,000 different species. This map is showing the concentrations of where the most observations are being made. And this information is accessible for conservation decisions as well as education, where people can learn about what species are around them. So our Canadian observations all feed into the global iNaturalist platform that encompasses 20 countries, each with their own iteration and translated versions in their own languages. So we are all part of a global network. And iNaturalist Canada is run and managed by the Canadian Wildlife Federation, but we do so with the support from key partners such as NatureServe Canada and Parks Canada. So what is the City Nature Challenge? It started in 2016 as a competition between Los Angeles and San Francisco. The City Nature Challenge has now grown into an international event, motivating people around the world to find and document wildlife in their own cities. Last year, over 440 cities took part, including 40 from Canada. And this year, there are over 600 cities preparing to participate. By the community, so The City Nature Challenge is run by the community science team at the California Academy of Sciences and the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. The CNC is an annual 4-day BioBlitz event that happens at the end of April, where cities are in collaboration meets friendly competition to see what can be accomplished when we all work towards a common goal. But it takes everybody to contribute, not just experts. So observations recorded using the iNaturalist app or online within participating cities are automatically added to the city in Canada as well as the global count. So the City Nature Challenge will take part this year in 2 parts. So the first part between April 26th to April 29th, which is the recording period. This is where we are giving a big push to get people out recording observations using iNaturalist, whether that's the iNaturalist app or online at iNaturalist.ca. All observations recorded within the city will automatically be added to the project. So all people have to do is snap and upload during this time. And then from April 30th to May 5th, people can finish uploading their observations. And this is the key period for identifying what people recorded or what you found around you. But it takes everybody to contribute, not just experts. Observations recorded using the iNaturalist app or online are again automatically added to the city if they are participating, as well as to the Canada and global total. Timing isn't ideal for Canadian cities, as we understand. April is varying across the provinces, which is why CWF is leading the Canada-specific CNC within the global one to kind of help level the playing field and to have a friendly national competition between all of our cities across the country. Once underway, this is the spot to see where all the observations are coming in real time and the leaderboard of which cities are battling for the top spot. It's not required to join a specific project for your observations to count, but it's a great way to keep updated as we post messages in the projects that you can be notified for. So not every city is participating, and people who are not in a participating city, they can check out the global project to capture their observations. This is also featured at the top of the iNaturalist.ca/projects website where you can see this. You'll have to join this project for your observations to count, but please don't join this project if you'll be making observations within a participating city. So today's webinar is on urban spaces. Urban environments host a surprising diversity of species ranging from birds and insects to plants and mammals. And despite being looked at as a concrete jungle, cities are thriving ecosystems full of life. And the ecosystems within cities are important not only for the biodiversity, but also for human well-being. So urban biodiversity plays a crucial role in maintaining ecological balance within cities. They help by preserving the urban biodiversity, we can enhance the quality of life not only for ourselves, but also for the animals that inhabit these areas. So from improving air quality and water quality to providing recreational activities, urban biodiversity contributes significantly to our well-being, and we have an immense amount of biodiversity in there that we have to protect. So now we're going to get to the main focus of this webinar. James is going to walk us through different urban spaces and some of the animals we potentially may encounter and how we can make the most of uploading these observations for City Nature Challenge and on iNaturalist.ca.
Great. Thanks so much, Acacia. That's a great overview. And yeah, I'm going to get into some of the specifics. We've only got a half-hour webinar, so we're trying to kind of go through this real quick without keeping people for a whole ton of time. So I'm going to talk about, yeah, urban spaces. And as Acacia said, anything you upload within a participating city to iNaturalist.ca or using the iNaturalist app is going to automatically count towards this City Nature Challenge tally. So I can stress that that's basically all you have to do. You can take a photo of something in those participating cities and add it to iNaturalist. It's going to count towards your cities, your Canada, and the global total. So first of all, when we think about urban biodiversity and places where we can look for things, the best place to start is right at home, right? And I'm sure not everybody really wants to know about how many critters might live inside your house, but it is a fact. There's definitely places you can go find insects down in your basement and different areas right within your home. So the first place we're going to think about is, hang on a second, I'm just going to grab my screen share. And okay, there we go. So first thing we're looking at is right in our own houses. Right down in your basement, down in the corners, there's spiders that might live down in there. The areas where maybe you don't uh, get that dust moth up there, corners, baseboards, that type of thing. So right inside your house, there's definitely things to check out. Now, for those that don't want to be venturing down into their basement, you can look from your windows even. Bird feeders are a great place to keep an eye out for, anything coming to visit your feeders. Leaving a porch light on at night is a good option to attract some moths. You can even put up a light on a white sheet on a background to attract moths that you can take photos of as well. So this is all from right within and just like out looking out your windows of your own house. You can also venture really close if you have, anything, any bit of yard or space around your house or on street sides. Cover objects like rocks and logs that are on the ground. You could flip those over, have a look underneath. This is a real hit with the kids as well, loving to look for insects and critters that live underneath things. In this case, we want to make sure we get a really good close and in focus photo, right, of these smaller insects and things that we're taking this close up. So a great resource. So we're venturing beyond our house, and we're gonna look at our city a little bit. A great resource, a great place to start is just Google Maps, and within Google Maps, our satellite view. Within the cities, there's definitely lots of spaces you can check out. You can look for forested areas along in and around the city through green belts. Like here, this is the Ottawa green belt. And as you zoom in, different wetlands within the city, wetlands will offer a different variety of species and places to explore. And for that, you can check out our upcoming webinars tomorrow and on Monday about exploring a wetland and forested habitats. But it doesn't have to be these green, kind of traditionally thought of green spaces within the city. I'm going to walk us through a look right pretty downtown in Ottawa here. And looking at, where are we here? Somewhere right here on Bank Street in Ottawa. And we're going to take you through a bit of a virtual walkthrough here of 4th Avenue. So first thing we can look around is we've got some, planted trees. So these types of things are not ones we're going to be adding to the City Nature Challenge, or if we do, we have to make sure that we tag them as such. But as we walk down the street, we can look, we have a tree here, and this is typical of springtime, right? Not a lot of leaves out. So this is going to be our first observation. So what we're going to do is pull out our iNaturalist app. And once you have an account and you've signed in, this is what your app is going to look like. These are all the observations you would have taken over the past that are saved in the app. If you haven't taken any yet, this will look blank. These species won't appear. But basically all you do is you're going to tap the plus, and you'll have the option to take a photo. So now the other option to think when you think this tree doesn't have any leaves is you can look on the ground. There's leaves from last year, and those still will count. But something like this kind of a photo to say this is a certain tree species isn't really all that valuable. So you might want to pick through and look for a leaf that you can actually identify. And then when you have this in your camera, you tap the take a picture button, and you'll see this now becomes a check mark, which you can select if that's a good photo, or if it's not in focus, you can tap the back arrow, which will take you back to your camera. And when you're satisfied with the photo, you tap the check mark. This brings you to the observation screen of your what you just took a picture of. Notice how the date and time as well as location are automatically added. That will pull from your app, from your cell phone. If it doesn't show, or if it has a little pop-up saying it's not working, check the settings of your phone, not the app, of your phone to make sure that you've granted iNaturalist access to the location in your device. The other thing is location visibility. It's defaulted to say open. So that means when you post this eventually, if this isn't posted yet, when you do, it will show up for everybody exactly where you took that photo. If you tap on this, there will be an option to choose obscured, which will put it in a random buffer around that location in case you don't want to be displaying the exact location. Maybe it's your backyard and you don't want to have that posted. So that's an option to click, to tap that and choose obscured. Now we're going to tap on what did you see? And this is what brings up the image recognition software called computer vision. This is going to suggest species based on the image, but also on what has been seen and observed nearby as well. And we see that it's pretty certain it's in the maples. And this top observation, and this is kind of chronological or descending order of the most likely species it is. We've got this first one here as a silver maple. And in fact, it is. And we're going to tap that to add the name silver maple into the observation. Now, more than one photo is often needed to really be certain of an identification. This leaf is pretty certain, but what we can do is add extra pictures. So we can tap the camera button in the top left, and we can take another photo. And here we're going to get a picture of the bud. We like the way this picture is. We tap the check mark, and now we see we have an extra photo up here. Also, I should note that these are all screenshots of the Android app. The iOS app is pretty similar. The buttons may look a little bit different, but the process is exactly the same. And we're going to do this one more time, and we're going to get a picture of the bark as well. It's a good picture. We're going to tap the check, and all three of those are up there. Now, here's something really helpful when you take more than one picture is you can then tap on the species name again. We have our leaf that's saying it's a silver maple. We can swipe between these pictures, and the image recognition software will now use that next photo to try and identify what that species is. It's really helpful if you're not 100% certain, and if all three of these photos are saying the same species, you can be a little bit more confident in the identification of this. And then to the bark, notice here that the wording is changing to say that they're not confident enough to make a recommendation. So this basically is iNaturalist's way of saying, we're not quite sure, maybe you should quite fully trust us. And generally we shouldn't. We should be using your kind of own deduction to be certain of what it is. And if you're not, you can start typing in, and we know this is a maple, we're pretty certain it's a maple. You can start typing in the word maples and then tap the one that comes up, because we need iNaturalist to tag this as like their kind of trusted name in iNaturalist. So it's better to do this and add it as maple if you're not 100% sure that it's a silver maple. I should know everything aside from this image identification process works offline, but you do need internet connection to use the auto identification. And I'll talk in a minute about a workaround though to be able to do that as well when you don't have data. So we've got this as a sugar maple. We've got our information here. We can add notes if we want. This was potentially a planted tree on someone's yard. So here's where we could check if that is captive or cultivated. And then we hit the check mark, and this adds to our list of things that we want to upload. Now, I have my app set to not automatically upload everything when I take that observation, because sometimes it will automatically just put it on iNaturalist for everyone else to see. A couple of reasons I do this. One, I don't really want to use my cell data sometimes, and so I'll be able to do this when I get back to Wi-Fi. The other is I like to check my observations before submitting that everyone else sees. But it also allows me to take advantage of the time I have in the field, and I can sometimes just snap the photo and keep going and then use the identification feature afterwards. And so now I'm going to show you how to turn that off. So if you go to the menu here, the three bars, you scroll down to settings and make sure the automatic upload is unchecked, which will leave these as in that waiting list. Tap those three bars again, brings you back to this screen. If you tap here on your observations or your name, brings you back to the same screen. We're going to keep walking here and coming along, and we might have to turn your volume a little bit for this. So we've got a bird call, for those that can't hear it, in the background. So sounds work as well for iNaturalist. So what you're going to do is, again, bring out your iNaturalist app, tap the plus, and in this case, we're going to choose to record a sound. That should take to a recording screen. Hang on a second. Oh, I jumped ahead. Hang on a second. So before we record the sound, we spot a fence. And we've got a lichen. Lichens grow on fences, logs, trees, sides of buildings. Lichens and mosses are great spots to great to check out. And the cool thing is that they're all out all year round, which will are great is great for springtime before other things are out. A picture like this though is not all that useful for identification. So you're going to want to zoom in onto the lichen itself. So if we like this photo, we're going to tap the check mark again. And at this point, as I mentioned, the image recognition software doesn't work offline. Say I don't have internet on my phone, I'm just going to hit the check mark. First, we notice that the location and dates are up there, and there's an accuracy, which also means that when you use the iNaturalist app, it actually kind of hones in on exactly where you are. You want to keep an eye on this to make sure it's kind of getting a decent accuracy and it doesn't say you're like 1,000 meters away. So here we're going to tap the check, and we have it uploaded as an unknown species. So time's passed. I've got my bird recording that I'm going to talk about in a second. And we're back at home or at the office, and we're connected to Wi-Fi. I'm going to tap again now. So I've got Wi-Fi through my home internet, and I'm going to tap on this unknown species again. Brings us to this kind of observation page, shows it's unknown. We're going to tap the edit button, this little pencil on the top right. Brings us back to the screen we've all seen already. And here we tap what did you see, and it's going to give you my image recognition suggestions. Say we're not 100% sure of what this lichen is. It's pretty certain it's a rosette lichen. I'm certain it's a rosette lichen, so I'm going to tap on that. The other option to do, we'll see, these are all lichen species that it's suggesting, but say it's kind of also noticing the moss in there and throws a few moss suggestions in there. We can tap on the filters, start tapping in fungi or lichens, and it will then filter only the suggestions that are in that species group. So I'm going to tap on rosette lichens is what it is. We got the name there, tap our check mark, and then we're back at this page and we tap the back arrow and we have it in our list to upload of rosette lichens. Okay, so now we did hear a bird call. we're gonna jump ahead to that one again now. And so we have a bird calling in the background. We tap that plus again, but this time we're going to tap the record a sound, which this time does open the recording function on the phone. You're going to tap the record button. And of course, as soon as you do that, the bird stops calling, right? So you can also tap the pause button and then wait for it to start calling again, and then tap resume and start up again. So it'll kind of cut out that in between. When you feel like you've gotten a good enough amount of time for sound recording, you tap the save. And we have it here, and we're showing that it's got a sound file associated with your observations and not a photo. It is really good to also have a photo, even if you can't get a great one. So again, just like before, you can tap the photo option. We take a photo. This is as good as I could zoom in with my cell phone camera, which is not great, but it does show there's a bird there. It's also sometimes it's a good reminder to be like, oh yeah, that's the species I saw there, just for your own sake sometimes. As good as I can get, I'm going to tap the check. There is no auto identification of sound in iNaturalist, so we can't use the sound to ID the species. Now that we've got a photo, we can see if it'll ID the photo. And in this case, it actually is not bad. It has cardinal here as the second option, so it must have seen some of the red in that image. We can tap northern cardinal, and it's put the name in there. Location and date is up there, and we tap the check mark, and it goes back to our other screen that would have the cardinal on that same list. So let's jump back into walking down the street and talk about a couple of other things. So those are the kind of the uploading section. There's other things we can look at even within this urban space. We can come through. We see lots of flowers here on some of these trees. As I mentioned, we don't really want to get cultivated and kind of planted species, but there's going to be a lot of pollinators that are visiting some of these flowers. Maybe there's a bird feeder outside. We're not obviously not going to walk onto someone's porch, but you can get photos of things if it's your own porch and uh, birds that are visiting feeders. Again, insects looking on the ground, some lichens potentially on the rocks. There's lots of things even on the urban sidewalks that we can still take photos of. Um, Also, dandelions on lawns or in between is a good option. And another thing we often see here in Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada are a lot of ash trees that look like this. The emerald ash borer has taken a toll on most of our ash trees around here. So here's another great option to record some pretty useful information, which can help track the spread of this invasive insect. And so similarly, we can take our app. I'm not going to walk through the whole steps this time, but just to show that taking a picture like this and saying the emerald ash borer is on this tree isn't again all that useful. So if we zoom in, we can see these kind of S-shaped pattern as this specific beetle, this emerald ash borer, does make on the trees. It's very distinctive, and it also has a D-shaped exit, so it's kind of flat on one side and curved on the other. That's very distinctive of the emerald ash borer, and actually iNaturalist does auto ID it to that species when we use the auto ID function. So another option to keep an eye out for ash trees and other insects on leaves or on the bark of trees, and lots of options. There's also, if we kind of to recap as well in our urban spaces that we share many species with. There's definitely no shortage of Canada geese and mallards, which tend to be the top observations in iNaturalist year round, but also through the Seeding Nature Challenge. So keep an eye and an ear out. Remember sound recordings for birds, also for frogs calling as well in some of the wetlands. There's also, again, in cities, no shortage of squirrels and raccoons. We also have dandelions and what people consider weeds, so to speak, on roadsides. And as you're getting through the city, think about heading to different habitats, right? So if we think of kind of trying to get to a forest edge, wetland, even within the city, to try and get a diversity of species, and check out those kind of conservation areas, green belts, to try and can find some more interesting and potentially some more rare species as well. Also remember to keep an eye out for pollinators and things that are down on the ground. Get nice and close, turn into like a family activity with kids to be able to see what you can find. And remember, all these things count and can be captured with a photo or sound, so it's really easy to contribute. But to remember also that the better your photo is or sound recording and getting those distinctive features, the better the auto ID is going to be, but also the better that the iNaturalist community will be to help identify your observations. Because once you submit those to iNaturalist, there are tens, hundreds of thousands of people that are on iNaturalist that can help identify these observations that you're making. So even if the image recognition software doesn't get it, someone on iNaturalist can come through, comment on your observation, and confirm that it is in fact that species that you took a picture of. And with that, it's a real quick overview, and we can take maybe one question if Acacia has gotten some compiled as well to pose for us.
Yes, I do. I kind of been typing away, getting through as many questions as I possibly could, but I think we have time for two really short ones. One question is, if you're walking with somebody else during the CNC weekend, is it okay for each of you to take an observation of the same thing, or should you split up and only submit unique observations?
That's a great question. I would suggest typically, so often thinking plants especially is easy to do. I would suggest that one person get a picture of a different individual plant, even if it's the same species. So at least it's a new observation. If it is the same one, you can add it to the notes, just saying, I was with someone else. You could even mention their iNaturalist name if you want. Don't have to, but you can say, this is the second observation of the same plant. That's a good way to do it as well.
And I don't know if we have enough time for this, but I think we may have something on the website to walk you through how to use the obscured function, especially if you're going to be uploading observations in your own backyard, but you don't necessarily want people to know the specific address.
Yeah, I don't have a screenshot of the exact process. I didn't add that in, but it's, as we saw that I said there's that option there. If you tap that line that says location visibility, a drop down will show up. The options will be open, obscured, and private, and you just have the one you like. Private, I didn't mention, but basically means it doesn't show up at all on iNaturalist. People won't be able to see it, people won't be able to confirm it, and it's actually becomes not that useful for conservation. So pretty, it's better to not use that setting unless it's really critical. I should mention as well, there's certain species that are automatically obscured. So it's rare species and ones that are subject to collection or poaching. Those are automatically obscured. A lot of our turtles are in Canada, just to keep those species safe. So if those are already obscured, you don't have to also do it again.
Perfect. And if we have one more room for one more question, somebody wanted to know whether or not, how do you know if a tree has been naturally there or if it's been planted by humans? And what is the best kind of approach for deciding on whether or not you're going to add it to your iNaturalist observation?
Yeah, you'll have to use your judgment on those ones. I think that city tree example was probably planted. It's right on the sidewalk in front of an older neighborhood. That one I would check to be sure I would check captive cultivated. Other things, obviously, if they're your garden plants, you've planted them. What is a bit of a gray area, but is if people are renaturalizing or restoring area and it's kind of become like a native area again. But definitely garden like escapees. So if you had a garlic mustard patch that's growing in your backyard that came from someone's garden, the escapee is definitely not captive cultivated. We call that natural or naturalized. So those ones we wouldn't check that box. But anything that you're certain is planted, then definitely you want to check that.
Perfect. And it's not a question from Leah, it's just a comment. Yes, you are more than welcome to project the recording of this webinar at the local library to encourage people to take part in the City Nature Challenge this year.
Yes, excellent. For sure. Everybody can share this far and wide, and we will send the link to the recording once this is all done.
Perfect. That's all the time we have now, but hopefully we will see some of you again tomorrow for our webinar that will be happening about wetlands.